The person you miss may be hiding something. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this story begins with a silence that seemed ordinary on the surface but carried a weight no one else could see. There are moments in life when someone you care about becomes quieter than usual. Their messages become shorter. Their smile doesn't reach their eyes the way it once did. They continue moving through their daily routine, yet something feels different. It isn't always because they've stopped caring. Sometimes it is because they are carrying thoughts they haven't yet found the courage to share. Listen carefully, because what happens next changes everything. Late one evening, the person you miss sat alone by a window, watching the lights outside slowly disappear into the darkness. The world around them was peaceful, but their mind was anything but calm. They replayed old conversations, remembered shared laughter, and reflected on moments they wished they had handled differently. They weren't searching for someone to blame. They were searching for the right words, words that had remained trapped inside their heart for far too long. Something huge is waiting, but not in the way most people expect. The greatest secrets are rarely dramatic. More often, they are simple truths left unspoken. A thank you that was never expressed. An apology delayed by pride. A feeling hidden behind fear of rejection. A hope quietly protected because disappointment had once hurt too deeply. Those silent emotions can become heavier with every passing day until they are impossible to ignore. Stay till the end, because this is where the story begins to shift. As midnight approached, they found an old photograph tucked between the pages of a notebook. They smiled without realizing it. For a brief moment, every wall they had carefully built around their emotions seemed to disappear. They remembered not only the joyful moments but also the lessons those memories carried. They realized that some connections leave lasting impressions not because they are perfect, but because they encourage us to become better versions of ourselves. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. Instead of asking themselves whether the past could ever be rewritten, they began asking a different question. If I had another chance to speak honestly, what would I say? That single question remained with them long after the room had grown silent. They understood that avoiding difficult conversations had never protected their heart. It had only postponed the healing that honesty could begin. As the night grew deeper, they quietly admitted something they had never spoken aloud. They had been afraid, not only of being misunderstood, but also of discovering that their assumptions might have been wrong. Fear had encouraged silence. Silence had created distance. Distance had made ordinary moments feel much larger than they truly were. For the first time, they recognized that courage is not always found in grand actions. Sometimes courage begins with one sincere conversation. Something huge is waiting because the following morning brought a fresh perspective. They no longer wanted to spend their energy guessing what others were thinking. They wanted to build relationships through trust, respect, and open communication. They realized that healthy connections grow strongest when both people feel safe enough to express themselves honestly, even when the conversation feels uncomfortable. Stay till the end, because this lesson became the turning point of their journey. They stopped measuring relationships by perfect moments and started valuing consistency instead. A thoughtful message. A patient conversation. A genuine apology. A quiet act of kindness. Those simple choices became far more meaningful than dramatic promises because they reflected character rather than emotion alone. Listen carefully, because the hidden truth in this story is not that someone was keeping a mysterious secret. The hidden truth is that many people carry unspoken emotions while hoping someone will understand without asking. Yet real understanding often begins when someone chooses curiosity instead of assumptions, compassion instead of judgment, and honesty instead of silence. My beloved child, remember this: if someone you miss seems distant, the wisest first step is not to imagine the worst. It is to approach the situation with empathy, respect, and an open heart. Sometimes the conversation we have been avoiding becomes the very conversation that brings clarity, healing, and peace. Even when outcomes remain uncertain, sincere communication has the power to replace confusion with understanding. As another evening settled over the horizon, the person in this story took a deep breath and quietly smiled. They had not solved every mystery. They had not answered every question. But they had discovered something even more valuable. They had learned that truth grows where trust is nurtured, that healing begins where honesty is welcomed, and that meaningful relationships are strengthened not by perfect circumstances but by people willing to show up with kindness, humility, and courage. Because sometimes the thing a person has been hiding is not a dramatic secret at all. Sometimes it is simply the hope that one honest conversation could change everything. And that hope became the beginning of a brand new chapter. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because the story was only beginning. After that quiet night of reflection, the person you missed could no longer pretend that ignoring their feelings was making life easier. They realized that every day spent avoiding honest conversations only created more unanswered questions. Instead of finding peace through silence, they found themselves thinking more deeply about the moments that had shaped their journey. They understood that some chapters are not meant to be forgotten. They are meant to teach us how to move forward with greater wisdom. Listen carefully, because something unexpected happened the very next morning. As they went about their usual routine, they noticed how often their thoughts returned to the same memories. It wasn't because they wanted to live in the past. It was because those memories reminded them of the kind of person they wanted to become. They remembered moments of laughter, encouragement, and quiet understanding. They also remembered opportunities where clearer communication might have prevented confusion. Instead of feeling discouraged, they chose to let those memories become lessons rather than regrets. Something huge is waiting because they began asking themselves different questions. Instead of wondering, why did everything happen this way, they started asking, what can I learn from this experience? That simple change transformed the way they looked at every challenge. They realized that difficult seasons often reveal strengths we never knew we possessed. Patience grows when answers take time. Compassion grows when we recognize that everyone carries struggles we cannot always see. Wisdom grows when we become willing to listen before judging. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. Later that evening they shared a quiet conversation with someone they deeply respected. The discussion wasn't about blame or disappointment. It was about perspective. The older friend smiled and said, "People often hide their fears because they don't know whether they will be understood. Sometimes the greatest gift you can offer another person is not perfect advice but a safe place to speak honestly." Those words remained in their heart long after the conversation ended. As the days continued, they slowly let go of the pressure to have every answer immediately. They accepted that trust is built over time, conversation by conversation, choice by choice. They discovered that meaningful relationships are strengthened when people feel respected, heard, and appreciated rather than rushed toward conclusions. This realization brought a calm they had been searching for during many restless nights. Listen carefully, because this became the greatest turning point. They stopped imagining the worst whenever uncertainty appeared. Instead, they approached situations with curiosity and kindness. They learned that asking sincere questions often reveals far more than making assumptions. They found that listening with patience creates understanding where silence once created confusion. Those simple habits quietly transformed the atmosphere of every important relationship in their life. Something huge is waiting because one peaceful evening they looked through old notes they had written during different seasons of life. They smiled as they noticed how much they had grown. The worries that once seemed overwhelming had become reminders of lessons learned. The fears that once controlled their decisions had slowly been replaced by confidence rooted in honesty and integrity. Growth had not happened overnight, but it had happened one thoughtful decision at a time. Stay till the end, because the hidden message of this story is becoming clearer. Sometimes the thing a person keeps hidden is not a shocking secret. Sometimes it is uncertainty, disappointment, hope, gratitude, or the simple desire to be understood without being judged. Every heart carries thoughts that are difficult to express. That is why empathy remains one of the greatest gifts we can offer each other. My beloved child, remember this forever: every relationship becomes stronger when we choose understanding over assumptions, respect over pride, and sincere communication over silence. You may not always receive the answers you expect, but approaching others with compassion creates space for trust to grow. And even when life remains uncertain, kindness is never wasted. As another quiet sunset painted the sky with warm colors, the person looked toward the horizon with a peaceful smile. They realized that healing had already begun, not because every mystery had been solved, but because they had stopped allowing fear to write the story. They had chosen patience instead of panic, honesty instead of avoidance, and hope instead of endless speculation. Because sometimes the greatest secret a person carries is not hidden from someone else. It is hidden from themselves. And the moment they finally face it with courage, everything begins to change. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this chapter begins where silence finally starts to lose its power. After days of quiet reflection, the person you missed realized they could no longer keep pushing important thoughts into the background. Every time they tried to distract themselves with work, responsibilities, or daily routines, the same feeling quietly returned. It wasn't demanding attention through noise. It waited patiently, reminding them that some questions deserve honesty instead of avoidance. For the first time, they stopped running from those questions and allowed themselves to face them with an open heart. Listen carefully, because something unexpected happened during an ordinary afternoon. While organizing a drawer filled with old notebooks and keepsakes, they came across a handwritten note they had almost forgotten. Reading those words brought back memories they hadn't visited in a long time. They smiled, not because they wanted to live in the past, but because they realized how much they had changed since then. The person they were becoming now was more patient, more thoughtful, and far less willing to let fear make important decisions. That realization filled them with quiet confidence. Something huge is waiting because they finally understood that not every unanswered question requires immediate answers. Some questions exist to help us grow. Some seasons are meant to teach patience before clarity arrives. They realized they had spent too much time trying to predict every possible outcome instead of focusing on becoming the kind of person who could handle any outcome with grace. That single shift in perspective changed the way they approached every relationship in their life. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. That evening they visited an older family member who had always offered calm advice. During the conversation, they admitted, "I keep wondering if I've misunderstood certain moments in my life." The older relative smiled gently and replied, "Perhaps. But the important question isn't whether you misunderstood yesterday. The important question is whether you're willing to understand better today." Those words stayed with them long after they returned home. They realized that wisdom is not found in having a perfect past but in responding wisely to the present. As another peaceful night settled in, they sat beneath the stars and reflected on everything they had learned. They understood that meaningful relationships are rarely damaged by one single mistake. More often, they are shaped by daily habits, how people listen, how they speak during disagreements, how they express appreciation, and how willing they are to forgive. They saw that every small act of kindness becomes part of a much larger story over time. Listen carefully, because this became the most important lesson yet. They stopped waiting for life to provide perfect certainty before taking positive steps forward. Instead, they decided to practice honesty consistently, whether conversations felt easy or difficult. They chose to appreciate people while they had the opportunity instead of assuming there would always be another chance. They chose humility over pride and curiosity over assumptions. Those quiet decisions brought a sense of peace they had never experienced before. Something huge is waiting because the following morning felt different. Nothing extraordinary had happened overnight, yet their heart felt lighter. The worries that once filled every quiet moment had gradually been replaced by purpose. They no longer measured progress by how quickly every mystery was solved. They measured it by how faithfully they lived according to their values each day. That realization became their greatest source of confidence. Stay till the end, because this story was never truly about discovering what another person might be hiding. It became a story about discovering the strength to communicate with sincerity, to listen with empathy, and to care without allowing fear to control every decision. They realized that genuine connection grows where respect is protected and understanding is pursued with patience. Those principles became the compass guiding every relationship they would build in the future. My beloved child, remember this forever: every heart carries untold stories, silent hopes, and private struggles that may never be visible from the outside. That is why kindness matters so much. When we choose compassion instead of judgment, thoughtful questions instead of assumptions, and steady encouragement instead of criticism, we create the kind of relationships where honesty feels safe. Those are the relationships that endure through every changing season of life. As dawn slowly painted the horizon with the colors of a new beginning, the person stood quietly, took a deep breath, and smiled. They understood that not every mystery had to be solved immediately. Some journeys become beautiful because they teach us patience, resilience, gratitude, and wisdom along the way. They were no longer searching for perfect answers. They were becoming the kind of person who could walk confidently into an uncertain future with honesty, integrity, and hope. Because sometimes the greatest truth waiting to be discovered is not hidden inside someone else's heart. It is revealed inside your own. The moment you choose courage over fear, understanding over assumptions, and hope over uncertainty. And that quiet decision became the beginning of the most meaningful chapter of all. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because the journey is reaching a place where everything begins to make sense. After embracing honesty instead of fear, the person you missed noticed something remarkable. Their heart no longer felt weighed down by endless questions. They had discovered that peace doesn't always arrive when every mystery is solved. Sometimes peace arrives when we stop allowing uncertainty to control our lives. That quiet realization became stronger with each passing day, changing the way they viewed every relationship and every opportunity for connection. Listen carefully, because one ordinary afternoon brought an unexpected conversation. A trusted friend noticed they seemed calmer than before and gently asked, "What changed?" They smiled thoughtfully before answering, "I finally realized I was spending too much energy trying to guess what people were thinking instead of simply appreciating the moments I actually have." The friend nodded with understanding and replied, "That's how wisdom often begins. We stop chasing certainty and start choosing sincerity." Those words echoed in their mind long after the conversation ended. Something huge is waiting because they began paying attention to the little moments they had once ignored. They noticed how meaningful it felt to truly listen when someone spoke. They discovered how powerful a sincere thank you could be. They realized that encouraging someone during an ordinary day often leaves a deeper impact than waiting for extraordinary occasions. These simple habits slowly transformed every relationship around them. Without realizing it, they were becoming the kind of person others naturally trusted and felt comfortable around. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. One peaceful evening they found themselves watching the sunset, reflecting on how different life felt compared to only a few weeks earlier. The fears that once filled every quiet moment had become much smaller. In their place grew gratitude, patience, and confidence. They no longer believed that happiness depended on controlling every situation. Instead, they understood that happiness grows when we choose integrity, kindness, and open communication regardless of what tomorrow may bring. Listen carefully, because another important lesson quietly unfolded. They realized that every meaningful relationship requires care, just as a garden requires water and sunlight. Trust grows when it is nurtured. Respect deepens when it is consistently practiced. Understanding becomes stronger when people make time to truly hear one another. These truths seemed simple, yet they carried extraordinary power. They wished they had learned them earlier, but they were grateful to understand them now. Something huge is waiting because they finally stopped asking, "What if I lose this connection?" Instead, they began asking, "How can I honor every meaningful connection with honesty, patience, and gratitude today?" That question changed everything. It shifted their attention away from fear and toward purpose. Every conversation became an opportunity to encourage rather than criticize. Every disagreement became a chance to understand rather than to win. Every ordinary day became another opportunity to strengthen trust through small acts of kindness. Stay till the end, because this story now carries its deepest message. The hidden truth was never about discovering a dramatic secret. It was about recognizing that every person carries hopes, fears, memories, and dreams that are often invisible to everyone else. When we approach others with empathy instead of assumptions, we create space for those hidden parts of the heart to be shared naturally. That kind of understanding cannot be forced. It grows through patience and mutual respect. My beloved child, remember this forever: if someone seems distant, begin with compassion before conclusions. If a conversation feels difficult, approach it with humility instead of pride. If you care about someone, let your appreciation be known while you have the opportunity. These habits may appear ordinary, but they quietly build relationships capable of lasting through every season of life. As another beautiful sunrise appeared across the horizon, the person stood quietly with a peaceful smile. They no longer feared unanswered questions because they had learned something far more valuable than certainty. They had learned how to trust the process of growth, how to communicate with sincerity, and how to love with wisdom rather than fear. Their journey had transformed them from someone searching endlessly for hidden answers into someone creating genuine connection through thoughtful actions each day. Because sometimes the greatest secret isn't hidden behind another person's silence. Sometimes it is hidden inside the quiet choices we make every single day. The choice to listen. The choice to forgive. The choice to appreciate. The choice to grow. And those choices became the beginning of a future filled with hope, peace, and relationships built on trust that could stand the test of time. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the end, because this chapter begins with a quiet realization that arrived when your person least expected it. After spending so much time searching for hidden answers, they finally understood that some of life's greatest discoveries are not found by chasing them. They are found by becoming still enough to recognize what has been true all along. As they sat alone one evening, they realized their greatest fear had never been uncertainty itself. Their greatest fear had been believing they might never have the chance to truly understand or be understood. That thought stayed with them long after the stars filled the night sky. Listen carefully, because something unexpected happened the following morning. They woke with a sense of calm that had been missing for a very long time. The questions that once raced through their mind no longer demanded immediate answers. Instead, they inspired thoughtful reflection. They realized that every experience, whether joyful or difficult, had quietly prepared them to become more patient, more compassionate, and more willing to communicate with honesty. Growth had not arrived through perfect circumstances. It had arrived through choosing wisdom one day at a time. Something huge is waiting because later that afternoon they shared a conversation with someone they deeply respected. During that conversation, they admitted, "I spent so much time trying to understand everyone else that I forgot to understand myself." The older friend smiled gently and replied, "When you truly understand your own heart, you stop expecting every answer to come from other people. You begin building relationships from a place of peace instead of fear." Those words settled deeply within them. They realized that healthy connections begin with emotional maturity before they are strengthened by communication. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. From that day forward they approached every important relationship differently. They became slower to assume and quicker to ask thoughtful questions. They became more generous with encouragement and less concerned about appearing perfect. They learned that admitting uncertainty is often a sign of wisdom rather than weakness. Those simple changes transformed the atmosphere around them. Conversations became more genuine. Friendships became stronger. Trust grew naturally because people felt respected and valued. As evening arrived once again, they took a quiet walk beneath the fading sunlight. Looking around, they noticed how many beautiful moments they had overlooked while worrying about things beyond their control. They appreciated the laughter of loved ones, the comfort of familiar places, and the simple gift of another ordinary day. They understood that peace is not created by controlling every outcome. It is created by appreciating the present while acting with integrity toward the future. Listen carefully, because this became the greatest lesson of their journey. Every relationship requires attention, patience, and sincere effort. Trust is earned through consistency. Respect is strengthened through humility. Love grows where kindness is practiced daily. These truths may sound simple, yet they hold extraordinary power. They realized that protecting a meaningful relationship is less about dramatic gestures and more about faithfully choosing honesty, empathy, and understanding every single day. Something huge is waiting because they finally stopped asking, "What hidden secret am I trying to uncover?" Instead, they began asking, "How can I become someone who creates safety, trust, and genuine connection wherever I go?" That question changed their entire perspective. They no longer focused on solving every mystery. They focused on becoming someone whose character reflected patience, gratitude, and compassion. That quiet transformation influenced every conversation that followed. Stay till the end, because the story now reaches one of its most meaningful moments. The hidden truth they had been searching for was never simply about another person's silence. It was about recognizing that everyone carries unseen burdens, private hopes, and emotions that deserve understanding rather than judgment. When we choose empathy before assumptions, we make room for healing. When we choose honesty before fear, we make room for trust. When we choose kindness before criticism, we create relationships that become stronger through every season of life. My beloved child, remember this forever: the strongest hearts are not the ones that know every answer. They are the ones that continue choosing grace when life feels uncertain, patience when progress seems slow, and hope when yesterday's questions remain unanswered. Those quiet choices become the foundation of a future filled with meaningful relationships and lasting peace. As the first light of another sunrise appeared, the person smiled with quiet confidence. They no longer feared what they did not know because they had discovered something far greater than certainty. They had discovered the strength to live with honesty, the courage to communicate with compassion, and the wisdom to appreciate every meaningful connection while they had the opportunity. Because sometimes the greatest mystery is not meant to keep you searching forever. Sometimes it exists to guide you toward becoming wiser, kinder, more understanding, and more grateful than you ever imagined possible. And that quiet transformation became the beginning of a future brighter than anything they had once been afraid to hope for. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the very end, because this is the final chapter where every unanswered question finds its true purpose. This journey was never simply about discovering whether someone was hiding something. It was about learning that the greatest relationships are built when people choose honesty over fear, understanding over assumptions, and compassion over judgment. Every quiet night, every moment of reflection, and every lesson along the way was preparing the heart for something much greater than a hidden secret. It was preparing it for peace. Listen carefully, because one beautiful evening the person you missed stood beneath a sky filled with stars and realized they were no longer carrying the weight they once believed would never leave them. They looked back at every memory, every misunderstanding, every conversation left unfinished, and instead of feeling regret, they felt gratitude. Those experiences had shaped them into someone more patient, more thoughtful, and more willing to communicate with kindness. They finally understood that growth is one of life's greatest gifts, even when it arrives through difficult seasons. Something huge was waiting because the following day brought a quiet conversation with a loved one. They were asked a simple question: what have you learned from everything you've been through? They smiled softly before answering, I've learned that people deserve to be understood before they are judged. I've learned that silence often hides fear, not indifference. Most importantly, I've learned that every meaningful relationship deserves honesty, respect, and consistent care. Those words filled the room with peaceful silence because everyone recognized the wisdom behind them. Stay till the end, because this changes everything. From that moment forward, they stopped chasing perfect answers. Instead, they began creating meaningful moments. They expressed gratitude without waiting for special occasions. They apologized when necessary without allowing pride to interfere. They listened more than they spoke. They became someone who encouraged others rather than assuming the worst. Those quiet choices transformed not only their relationships but also the way they experienced life itself. As the weeks passed, they noticed something remarkable. Their heart no longer searched for hidden meanings behind every silence. Their mind no longer rushed toward fearful conclusions. They had discovered that trust grows through communication, patience, and shared understanding. Every conversation became an opportunity to build stronger connections. Every act of kindness became another reminder that love is sustained through daily choices rather than dramatic moments. Listen carefully, because this became the greatest discovery of the entire story. The secret they had been searching for was never locked inside another person's heart. The real secret was hidden within their own. It was the realization that peace begins when we stop allowing fear to control our imagination. It begins when we choose to speak honestly, listen carefully, forgive sincerely, and appreciate the people who bring light into our lives while they are still beside us. That truth changed everything. Something huge was waiting because they finally understood that every new sunrise is an invitation. An invitation to become more patient, more compassionate, more courageous, more grateful. Yesterday had already completed its work by teaching valuable lessons. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to put those lessons into practice. Instead of fearing the future, they welcomed it with confidence because they trusted the character they had built through every challenge. Stay till the end, because this story carries one final message that deserves to remain in your heart. There will always be moments when life feels uncertain. There will always be conversations that require courage and seasons that test patience. Yet if you continue choosing kindness over resentment, honesty over silence, and hope over fear, your heart will never truly lose its direction. Those choices become a light that guides every meaningful relationship you build throughout your life. My beloved child, remember this forever: the most beautiful endings are not created by uncovering every mystery. They are created when people decide to become wiser than yesterday, kinder than yesterday, and more grateful than yesterday. They are created when two hearts value trust more than assumptions, communication more than pride, and respect more than the need to always be right. As the first rays of the morning sun illuminated the horizon, the person took one final deep breath and smiled with complete peace. They no longer carried the burden of wondering what was hidden. They carried something far more powerful: a heart strengthened by wisdom, a spirit guided by compassion, and a future filled with hope. They knew that no matter where life led next, they would continue building relationships with honesty, patience, humility, and love. Because the greatest treasure was never a hidden secret. It was the person they had become through the journey. A person who chooses truth over fear, grace over pride, understanding over assumptions, and hope over doubt. That is the ending that truly changes everything. And as one chapter gently came to a close, another began, not with uncertainty, but with quiet confidence, lasting peace, and the promise that the best days are still waiting to be written.